I should be in the Hall of Fame just for putting up with Richard. Venus and Serena, we were literally brainwashed to be number one. I know it's coming. You're asking me about Emma. The best vacation I ever took was Compton, California. I'm not a believer if you're 5 years old or six. You just dive in and start playing tennis. First hour, I thought, like, this is a joke. Roddick's parents weren't really involved. I got really good fast. She's like Martina Hingis on steroids. People are writing it changed their life. I'm more a life coach than a tennis coach. Rocky Balboa shocks the world. What are you doing, you knucklehead? Bang! Like 30 Grand Slams went out the window. No one made more mistakes than Venus Williams when I had her. I love it just as much today as I did the first time I got on the tennis court.
You must have had a pretty long day already. I hear you wake up at 3:30. Is that right?
You're close. I wake up at 2.
2?
Yeah, I have breakfast and end up running a half mile. Then I have an awesome office here at home, so I get about an hour done in the office, and then I go open up the park, which I live a half mile. I open it up at 5 o'clock every day, 7 days a week, and then I'm on the court at 6.
As a student, you're waking up earlier than I'm going to bed. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I go to bed at like 7. So hey, I'm good. And I still teach
Uh,
50 hours a week. I still teach 50 hours, and I love it much today as I did back when I started at 22.
that's brilliant. Honestly, I've seen some videos and clips of you online, and I mean the energy and the positivity and the engagement you have on court just 100% of the time just blows me away. It's incredible. I can't wait. Brilliant. Right. Thank you so much for joining us, Rick. I'm going to start off. I wasn't sure whether to start or end this discussion today with this question, but why for you is tennis just the greatest sport in the world?
Um, well, just from a youth point of view, or even an adult point of view, there's the exercise part, which is amazing. But once you kind of get into competition, you're on your own. You got to problem solve. You handle failure. You handle success. There's good and bad. You got 20 seconds to flip it in your mind like it happened 20 years ago. There's so many life lessons when you play tennis because it's an individual sport, very different dynamic than a team sport. But that's also why people like doubles better. They can blame their partner if something goes wrong, but that's why tennis is so great. There's just so many intangible benefits, the hard work, the dedication, but you're on your own. You got to do it on your own and you got to figure it out. And those are the things that happen as you go through the game of life, how you respond to situations. Even though it's different with a ball and a racket, it's still a common thread that you're going to see in the game of life.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I just saw a clip just before I hopped on here with Francis Tiafoe, who described it as probably the hardest sport in the world because there's so many, as you said, so many factors, so many things to think about. You're on your own,
It's
and
one of it's one of the hardest, because especially at the highest level, you can
mm,
see not all the best athletes aren't winning grand slams all the time. Everybody's athletic, everybody has similar technique, some a little better than others, but it's the game of inches, from one ear to another. And it's how you handle those moments. And they just master mind control. And like I said, that's going to help you, as you go through life.
so I want to talk a little bit about yourself. You picked up a racket for the first time at 12, is that right?
Yeah.
12 years old.
Yeah, I actually, I grew up in a small town, Greenville, Ohio, 20 miles southwest of Dayton, Ohio. I actually was a very good golfer. My father passed away when I was 10 years old. We couldn't join the country club anymore. I went down to the local park, had a tennis racket, um, hit against the wall. I love the sound of the ball hitting against the wall. And it always came back, Wally's undefeated, Wally's undefeated. And I just fell in love with the game, and back then that was what the, late 60s or whatever, there tennis was just kind of getting going a little bit. And I just fell in love with the game. Uh, Not very many people played in my hometown. And, through a lot of dedication, hard work, I was athletic. I played all sports, football, baseball, basketball, tennis. Fast forward that story without getting into everything else. I picked up a racket, 12 years old. not a lot of people to play with. I taught myself how to play. 5 years later, I'm the number one player in the Ohio Valley. Okay. And, guys that you got to understand, this was 8, 10 hours a day. I practice in the snow. I'd hit it against the wall after basketball practice, So I think the work ethic and the dedication but the passion, I just loved it. Okay. And got pretty good, at a pretty good level. Played a few qualifying tournaments at the pro level, but I knew to be great, everything's at the top. So I started getting into teaching. I loved helping others more than myself. I had a gift to communicate. I love to analyze things. You'll like this. When I was a kid, I would always go to the movies, and after 5 minutes, all my friends would leave because I'm sitting there trying to figure out how it's going to end. And I'm telling them the end of the movie. I'm eating their popcorn by myself, and they're sitting somewhere else. I always like to figure things out, and I still have the same passion as I did at 22 years old, and still going strong. But that's how it all started. And now that I talk about it more, I've done so many podcasts and interviews, especially since the movie and stuff like that. Um,
Mm.
I look back and I'm going, wow, that's kind of amazing. But, from my heart, all I care about is I got to get better tomorrow. And that's just how I'm put together.
That's incredible. So you said at 18 you got to number one in Ohio, that's right?
A certain part of Ohio, West Virginia, so Kentucky. So yeah, I got really good fast because I was athletic, and I was mentally very, very strong, and played basketball. That was the best thing for my footwork, and I'm in the Hall of Fame in my high school for basketball and tennis. Um, but tennis set me on a course the rest of my life.
Yeah, something I want to touch on a bit later, actually, all the other different sports you played before and during your tennis journey. But you started coaching at 22, is that right?
Yeah, well, I was always helping people even when I was a teenager because I was the best player in my hometown. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of helping people out, but I really got like my first job around that time in Troy, Ohio, about 20 miles from Greenville. And I'll never forget this. The guy who was the head pro, uh, after the first week, he said, "You're going to be one of the greatest teachers of all time." And I'm sitting there, this guy was like 70 some years old. I'm going, I was still wanting to play, but he just saw that something. And, I didn't think anything about it, but I think he saw how I work with any age, any level, any ability. And I just, whatever someone had inside, I was on a mission to get it out of them, and he saw something. You can't read a book, to get better. That can help you. You always got to keep getting better. But I'll never forget he told me that. And then fast forward that story, I'm still going strong. And like I said, I love it just as much today as I did the first time I got on a tennis court.
I think we can all look back on our lives as we grow and get older and pick out significant moments that have led us to where we are, right? And I want to ask, is there a moment, perhaps even recently, outside of your uh, famous success stories, that confirmed for you that, yeah, I made the right choice? This right here, me being on court, coaching these kids, this is what I was here to do.
You mean a certain player or a certain situation?
Well, a player, a moment, anything that perhaps comes to mind where you just thought, yeah, this is right.
Um, Well, obviously, I've had, obviously Capriati and the Williams sisters and Sharapova and Roddick and Moschina and Pierce and Kennan. And I could go on and on, Casper Ruud's dad. I could go on and on with so many players that I've coached. But obviously, the best vacation I ever took was Compton, California. And not a lot of people can say that. And why I went out there, I have no idea. I've never done something like that in my life. They either come to me or I see them at a junior tournament. But Richard said, "Hey, Rick, I promise I won't get you shot. We're still great friends. I see him all the time." He just, and I don't know, look at that decision. And when I saw what I saw eventually, obviously we changed history. So obviously that decision was uh, a huge thing for me because I just fell in love with the girls. They were like my own daughters. But to back the truck up, the best decision I ever made was coming to Florida, becoming the director of tennis at Greenleaf Golf and Tennis Resort, in 1980. It's the miracle in the orange groves off a beaten path in Haines City, Florida. I turned it into a mecca. I had Tommy Ho, the most dominant junior player ever, won the nationals at age 15 at the 18s as a 15-year-old in 1988, a record that still stands today. And I had Capriati at 12 years old. She won the 18s that same year in 88. I had the daily double, both of them. Those records still stand. And from their success, then many other kids came. I said, let's start an academy. I don't want people living with me though, just my cat. That's good enough for now. And then the Williamses come, and I'm still doing exactly the same thing, as I did back then, because I know a lot more, obviously, especially about biomechanics. But I think going to Greenleaf, being in a year-round warm weather environment, that was always my goal, to do that. And I don't regret any decision that I made my whole life, because I never look in the past, because if you look in the past, you get past. I always look forward because I want to keep going forward.
Well, you sort of touched on my next question, which was, how do you reflect on your role in so many successful players' lives and journeys in the sport? And you mentioned quite a few of them there, Roddick and Capriati, and you've been a part of so many great players' journeys. And well, I guess you've already answered it. How do you reflect on that?
Haven't really talked about that. I don't really look at it like that, but obviously, because I've done 400 podcasts and do a lot of TV stuff, and people ask me more and more about that. And I don't know. I think I just want to help people so much. Whoever is on the other side of the net, that hour, that minute, that second, that's my favorite student. So if I taught you, that'd be my favorite student. That's the way my mind is. They think it's Venus or Serena, or no, it's not like that. And when I look back, I say, wow, but there's been over 300 kids win national titles, people you probably never heard of, and they've won all the junior grand slams, And so there's a lot of things that I've been a part of. And to me, I'd rather build the box than sit in the box. A lot of guys are waiting on third. You kind of got the product finished. I mean, if someone's already won 10 grand slams, you just don't want to mess it up if you start coaching them. You know what I mean? That's an easy thing. But to put it together, one grip, one backswing. But what I do is I extract greatness. I'm more a life coach than a tennis coach. I get people to move mountains, jump over fences, get them to believe. I make confidence before they get confidence. I instill courage. One grip, one backswing, one mindset can change the course in someone's career. And this is what I do. It's not in the water, and you have a big impact on players when you can do reconstructive surgery, or you can change that muscle memory at a young age. As they get older, it's a little tougher. And what I was saying is the best compliment I ever had was from Venus and Serena, at the red carpet at the after party. They said, Rick, we were literally brainwashed to be number one. Now you got to have the athleticism and you got to have some other stuff, but the environment that I created, to extract greatness, think big. We never talked about 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds. We were talking about, Davenport, or we were talking about Hingis or Capriati. We were always talking about people on the tour. It's a whole different way that I coach, and to get people to believe, especially if they have the athleticism. So when they said that was huge. You know what I mean? That's it. That's it. Like, we're supposed to be there. We're great athletes. We are going to be number one. Now you got to have the thoroughbred if you want to win the Derby. That doesn't work with a donkey, even though you can make the donkey really good. That's probably the best compliment ever, and I think that's very telling.
I just love that philosophy of, despite the great players you've coached, the most important one just being the one that's there with you right then and there. I just absolutely love that. And I want to move on to a bit of your coaching journey and your philosophy now. So the course that I'm doing at university involves coaching and teaching. And just recently we've touched on this idea of early specialization. So this idea that of kids being selected from a very young age to specialize in one sport in order to become an elite athlete. And I know that obviously you picked up the racket very late, but you were involved in other sports before then. And I think just recently, Yannick Sinner, he was an elite level skier before he became a tennis player. I just wondered what your thoughts on that is compared to someone who was forced to, not exactly forced, but someone who did just specialize in tennis.
No, I love this question. It's right in my wheelhouse, especially coming from the background that I came from: football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, and then eventually tennis. Because everybody said, "Oh, you got amazing footwork. You're light on your feet, like you're on eggshells." And no one taught me how to move. A little bit of that could be genetic, but it's also enhancement from other sport. Any parent or coach that's watching this, you want to make the player, number one, the best athlete you can. Get him involved in other stuff, soccer, basketball. I mean, anything with movement and competitiveness. You want to make the person the best athlete you can. Enhance the eye coordination, the competitiveness. Listen, you don't know where they're going to gravitate to. I'm not a believer if you're 5 years old or 6, you just dive in and start playing tennis. Okay. You need repetitions. It's all about the repetitions, but it's the right repetition. That's a whole nother podcast about the technical or the biomechanics, because everything in life is in the eye of the beholder. But you want to make them the best athlete. If I showed you the Williamses worked out every day with a professional boxer, they did hula hoop, they did juggling, they did throwing exercises, and they were already athletic. They didn't need it, but I wanted to make them more athletic. And that's why Richard, loved me and we got along so good. I was just like very different the way I look at things. So everybody should make them, number one, the best athlete they can instead of a tennis player. Okay, that comes later on. You do have to pick one item off the menu, and it's going to be tennis. Okay, then you got to dive in with the tournaments and the repetitions. I get all that. But the more you can do, you mentioned Sinner. You could talk, all these guys have a soccer background. And I'm not saying it wouldn't work the other way. It's just been my experience. And the way I go about doing this, I like them to do a lot of things. They learn a lot of different things along the way. It enhances athletic ability, because on the tennis court, you're just going to enhance your racket skills and your tennis movements. But other movements make it more natural for you to get to the ball off balance, out of position. The rest of the world is lobbing and Sinner's hitting a cross-court backhand winner. Those innate qualities that you get from other sports, they shine. And I'm just telling you, it's very important. Number two, the role of a coach or a parent. You want to make them the best competitor you can. Forget forehand, backhand, serve, which you've seen all this stuff that myself and my partner, Dr. Brian Gordon, 15 years ago, cutting edge, biomechanics, ATP forehand. Everybody's rewrapped it and regurgitated, but we're way ahead of the curve. We still are with how mechanics should be done. But forget that. A, make him the best athlete. B, make him the best competitor. Those two things alone can win a lot of matches. Then if you get optimal technique on that type of athlete with good genetics and a good serve, a lot of good things are in the oven.
You briefly mentioned just you seeing things differently. And as a coach, I believe it was Chris Eubanks who remarked his time spent commentating actually helped his game last year. And would you say coaching and approaching the sport from that outside lens looking in has helped you as a player, or or has it just improved your game or understanding of the game better?
Yeah, I think you always got to look at it from a different vantage point. I even have some of the juniors help the little kids. I have them feed the ball. I have them give pointers. I have them help out the little kids so they see what it's like from the coach's point of view, patience, understanding, and they have more an appreciation. So I think everybody needs to do that more and more and more. But at the end of the day, no one has been on a tennis court, okay, since age 22, more than Rick Macci. And still, and I never had a lesson in my life. And here it is at age 69. No one teaches more in the whole United States than myself every week. So there's a lot there because I just been on the court. I know how to say it, when to say it, why to say it, not a wrong way or a right way. There's a better way. I learn every single day from the student, from the parent, instead of this is my way. I got, ideas on certain things, but I'm flexible and adaptable. Like Venus didn't want to do the backhand the way I wanted. No problem. I looked at it, I digested it. I said, hey, our contact point doesn't deviate. What people look as a liability, I'm looking at this could be a weapon, especially when she hit the open stance down the line. I could go on and on and on. But there are common threads from a science point of view that have to happen. And I understand all that. But and you got to depend on what the student's goal is. High school tennis, go to college maybe for free. Pro tennis, that's rare air. That's a whole different thing, you know? So you got to know their goals and so on and so forth. I know I kind of deviated from what you said, but there's a lot of meat on the bone to that question.
So, fellow YouTuber and tennis coach Ian from Essential Tennis, he's recently opened up on the difficulties of maintaining a business and livelihood online due to the plethora of tennis content online now. And I just wondered, with so much information out there, have you found it to simply enrich your students' experience, or has it confused or led them astray in some way?
First off, great question. The fact that the internet, you can put anything up there, you can, rewrap it, regurgitate it. A lot of people will take stuff, obviously, that I do and Dr. Gordon and kind of put their own spin on it. And I think well, first off, I think it's the best compliment ever when people do that. The problem is the general public, can get confused because there's a lot of people that probably are doing it more just for the marketing and there's not a lot of substance to it. So it can be confusing, but I also think it can be informative, especially for the people that maybe cannot afford, you know, a certain training or a certain lesson. So, and there's enough out there they can pick and choose. And I think for anybody watching this or going to YouTube or wherever they get their content, they should look at everything, because not everybody knows everything. Not everybody might say it a certain way. And you don't want to get pigeonholed. You don't want to be holding the racket maybe the same way for 20 years or standing the same way on your serve for 20 years or doing your forehand. I have so many adults around the world that come here and I do reconstructive surgery on their forehand and they're blown away. They learn more in 5 minutes than they did in 5 years when I do it live and in color. So yeah, I think I think it's great, but there's so much out there. I think people should look at everything and the leader in the clubhouse, they should always experiment.
Right, just to cap off this, conversation about your coaching and your coaching philosophy and everything, I'm starting my own coaching journey here in the UK. I've just got my level 1 LTA qualification. Do you have any words of wisdom for us that are looking to go down this path?
Absolutely. You gotta have passion. You gotta love it. You can't mail it in. You gotta always be on time. Okay. And you gotta continue your education every day. Because once you start doing it and people say, that was great, you're great, whatever, you know, like I told you, I got better this morning. I'll get better
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. I learn from all my students every day. And a lot of coaches they get locked into the club or their situation. And if you want to be the best you can be, you got to keep improving. Because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. But I think passion is the number one thing, and always try to figure out. And I think you got to look at people who have been there, done that, and proven. Nothing beats proven. You can't read a manual, you can't read a book. Listen, some of that stuff is very outdated. Even if they're the official of the official, it could be outdated. The game has changed so much. It's in a state of flux. It's like advanced steroid pinball on steroids. And if you're not teaching optimal technique to people, especially people that want to really continue. I know with adults they don't have as much time to practice. The game has changed. And you can't just say, oh, the pros can do it. You can't. You don't know unless you try. I'm the number one 80-year-old guy in the United States. You believe that? He's 80, and he comes here, and I work on the ATP forehand because he had stuff all flat like Jimmy Connors, and one lesson I got him hitting the ball is so different. He goes, I haven't done that in 70 years. So that kind of made my day. No, but that would be the best thing, and get better. But you got to, and the kids that maybe are the toughest challenge or maybe don't have the best attitude, that's your job as a coach to get them a great attitude, get them to hustle. You're not always going to have the perfect students. I like the ones that don't listen because then I get them to listen. Or I like the ones that are maybe lazy and I get them unlazy. Sure, the ones that run like a jackrabbit and compete and yes, sir, and are very polite, everybody loves that. But as a coach, your job as a role model and a father figure, and you got to take that to the court every single day, no matter who's in front of you. But if you're saying, I only like to work with these people, and I only like to work with boys or girls or this level, that's not the best way to do it. If you're a coach, okay, you should want to teach anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Brilliant. Now, of course, we must mention your depiction in the movie King Richard. I think that's a given, which I absolutely love that movie. I've watched it again recently in preparation. And Richard, I think is fair to say, was a bit of a polarizing figure. Is there a moment not featured in the movie that you remember where you just thought, what on earth have I gotten myself into?
Not really, but listen, there were so many things that could have been in the movie. I got so many stories, you have no idea. All positive, all great. It have made the movie, believe it or not, even better. Okay. The movie was so spot on. It's so real. It showed the financial risks I took. I could have been wrong, but I wasn't. And it's just, I mean, I should be in the Hall of Fame just for putting up with Richard. I mean, I think I should be in the Hall of Fame just for that. But no, he became my best friend. We're on a mission. The girls are like my own daughters. And that's what I liked about the movie. Because back in the day, because I wasn't involved after 95, it kind of went from Compton to a lot of people to center court. And the movie kind of showed, wow, what a risk I took and changed history. So that's what I love about the movie. It was spot on, but there's never one day that I said, what did I get myself into? So I knew what I was going to get into. I bought him a $92,000 motorhome. Richard was getting paid $54,000 a year. They had a condo on the golf course, had a golf cart, health insurance, food. I mean, I went all in. Okay. And one of the funniest signs Richard said to me early on, he goes, hey, Rick, I need you to work on my overhead. And I said, well, wait a minute. I didn't think you played tennis. He goes, I don't play tennis. I want you to pay some of my bills. I go, I love this guy. He's a comedian. Okay. He wanted me to work on his overhead. So no, unless they got hurt, I knew after I didn't see it at first. The first hour, I thought like, this is a joke. It's a train wreck, I didn't see it. But once we started competing and I saw the rage inside and I started projecting 6 feet, 160, 5'11, 150, where tennis was in 1991. And I not only thought I could make these two little girls, number one, they could transcend the sport. Because back in the early 90s, if you were big and strong, you weren't nimble. they were going to bring a whole nother athlete. Nowadays, everybody is like that. You see, so I looked at it very different, and I said, you know, Venus was like amazing. Serena wasn't as mature, but she had all the time in the world. She knew where you were going to hit it, but she looked sloppy. People, they see the video. I've had 20,000 people said at 10, my kid's better than that. They were wrong. They were wrong on that one, but you look at the video and you've probably seen it. But I said it right then, and I knew where it could go, but I had to put it together, and had to make it happen. And so, no, I have no regrets, and there's nothing I ever said, what am I doing? Other than that first hour in Compton. I said, what am I doing? They aren't that good. And it's a great lesson for any coach, parent, or Rick Macci. You don't judge a book by the cover. The cover could be a
I really enjoy reading these posts of yours, just revealing these small nuggets of information about the early years with Venus and Serena. And you put one out recently about the hardest worker on the court being Richard. And he obviously did a lot for his kids. But today we've seen a number of struggles with his parents being involved, maybe too much in the careers of young guys and girls on the tour. How do you view the role of parents for a professional player on tour?
Yeah, well, first off, great question. No one knows this movie better than Rick Macci. Obviously, having Richard Williams, Stefano Capriati, Jim Pierce, Moschina's dad, Sharapova's dad, Kennan's dad. I mean, there's some interesting creatures right in that package, you know what I mean? That I just said. So listen, it happens a little more, what I've seen, daddy's little girl. The fathers are more protective with the girl. The boy, it's a little different dynamic. Like Roddick's parents weren't really involved. You carry your own water, you do your own thing. So I took this long ago. The parent should be involved. They got to be supportive. Okay. They got to be the backbone. But as unfortunately, tennis is one of the easier sports to teach for a parent. You hit it in the net, aim higher. You hit it out, more topspin. The parents get so involved. They even start telling me what to do. So don't feel bad when they start telling you what to do. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But Richard, that was different. He always treated them like little girls. And he was always about life lessons. And there was always a lot of hugging and kissing. And they brought their books to the court every day. And if it rained, go up in Rick's office and study. And every single night, good, bad, happy, sad, Rick, thank you very much. And they'd give me a fist pump. Serena, when she was mad, it might be a little harder. I mean, she was like a pit bull, okay? Venus was a little more gentler. Serena loves it when I call her the pit bull. So it's like he was a master psychologist. He really was. He was rough. He was tough. He was locked in, loaded, ready to launch. But there was balance. Other parents don't get it. They don't get it. And that's why me and Richard clicked because I knew all this stuff. And so he was the master, and he kept everybody off balance. But the way he treated those girls, that was a big reason why this worked. Because I just respect him so much as a dad, because I have 3 daughters. So at the end of the day, the parent needs to understand it's part of a journey. It's a game of life. Okay, things could be a lot worse. They want the instant gratification so they can talk at the cocktail party. Remember, to any parent watching this, it's junior development, not junior final destination. But let's face it, if you don't win a lot, they're going to go somewhere else. We've all seen that movie. The parents have to understand takes a long time to build the house. No one made more mistakes than Venus Williams when I had her, especially on the swing volley. She was launching missiles from North Korea off the fence. It was like out of control, beads and hair flying everywhere. But no one probably made more swing volleys in pro tennis than Venus Williams. The more you miss, the more you're going to make. The more you fail, the more you're going to succeed. But everybody, even coaches, keep the ball in play, rally back and forth. That's okay. depending on where you're at in your development. But Richard understood positive errors, courage, go for it, think different. Okay. Because we had the athlete that helps, but still, there's a lot of people that don't reach their ability. People don't understand that. There's a lot of great athletes out there. How many Grand Slams did Kyrgios and Monfils have? None. So you got to understand it's more to it than just uh, uh, what you see. You got to build it. You got to build it. And the more you fail as a junior, working on stuff and experiment, that's what all these kids did that you see. Because when they get in pro tennis, you want to own it. You don't want to rent it.
I think they show that so well in the movie of Richard really prioritizing that they are kids, they deserve a childhood before anything else, before their success in tennis. He wanted them to have a childhood more than anything. I think that's really great. We just have a few more questions. I'll try and get through them quickly before something else goes wrong. Just moving away from your coaching now, is there someone in the tennis world whose work or contribution has gone or is going unfairly unnoticed, in your opinion? Someone that deserves a bit more praise?
Absolutely. I love this question. One of my best friends, okay, the smartest guy on the planet, Dr. Brian Gordon. He's a biomechanist. He did his thesis on stroke mechanics. This guy's a wizard. He's the Wizard of It, not the Wizard of Oz. I mean, this guy is brilliant, and he'll break it down microscopically, every fiber in your body, how to optimize, especially the three big ticket items, the forehand, backhand, serve. And I, I have so much respect and admiration because he's a scientist, he's a doctor. And let's face it, a lot of those type people, they don't get as much credit or accolades as maybe someone who has the capabilities to market it or have a better video guy, or their parents have money and they can give them, if they embellish like all that in perception in the outside world, that guy's really good, but he's limited. But someone like Dr. Brian Gordon, he's the smartest guy ever. I've seen everybody, I've heard everybody, I got a feel for a lot of things. This guy is so good with stroke mechanics. Okay. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And how he can expedite the learning curve. So he would be one that comes to mind. And I'm sure there's many, many others that we've never even heard of that really contribute because they have a great attitude, they care, they're dedicated, they give 100%. They can motivate. That's a big thing in coaching anybody, because one word can change a child's life. And so there's so many people out there. I think everybody has something to contribute, but there might be a few of us out there that maybe can say it and present it a little bit different and expedite the learning curve. And it's not the window dressing, like all the awards you've won, or, you're on YouTube all the time, or you coach a Grand Slam champion. That's different. I think a lot of developmental coaches who put Humpty Dumpty together, the cards you're dealt with at a young age, a lot of times those are the cards that you go to on the pro tour. There might be modifications or adaptations or adjustments made. You know what I mean? But the player's built from the day they start playing till like 17 or 18, because it's very hard to reprogram the reflexes. It's very hard to change muscle memory. Okay. Even though myself and Dr. Gordon can do that better than anybody in the world.
Now, you've got a new book out, or it came out a few months ago, $1 Billion Mind. Why the focus on mental strength, and what started that journey in creating this book?
I love this question too. Dr. Niv, believe it or not, I taught her and her twin sister when they were 16 years old. And I got them both into Harvard. Okay. She's an amazing doctor. And she reached out to me about a book on mental strength. And so we teamed up, and it's now becoming a bestseller. Okay. It's almost like in this book, like you're having 100 lessons with Rick Macci. All the positivity, all my quotes, they're in there, but there's a lot of stuff backed up by science and the medical field. It's a game changer. People are writing it changed their life, and it gives you a blueprint or a roadmap that you can follow. Okay. And let's face it, at the end of the day, I think I said it early, I'm more a life coach. I can help people forget the biomechanics or the strategy, or the technical, but the mental part, and that's always been my calling. And I think my experience in the early 80s with Dr. Jim Lair, one of the top sports psychologists of all time, that had the biggest impact on my career, being around him early in the 80s at Greenleaf. So this has always been in my wheelhouse. Now it's in a book to share with the world.
We've got one more before some fan questions, which we'll get to. We've seen plenty of so-called one slam wonders that have disappeared just as quickly as they've emerged onto the scene.
You're going to ask me about Emma. I know what's coming. You're asking me about Emma.
Well, not directly, but I'm a big fan of Emma, by the way, and I defend her to the masses. What are the biggest mistakes that those individuals make upon experiencing seemingly overnight success?
First off, another great question. Listen, to win a Grand Slam, I don't care men's or women's, that doesn't happen by accident. And with Emma, to go through qualifying and win it and not drop a set, that shows you how strong she is mentally and how much ability she has. Now, here's the wild card for everybody to understand. Most people would get more confidence from that catastrophic event where Rocky Balboa shocks the world, type of event when you win a Grand Slam. Okay, now here's what happens next. Your life changes on the outside. More friends, more money, more this, more that. Everything changes around you. But at the end of the day, you're still on a tennis court with a racket and a ball and a competitor, and the lines are the same. Nothing changes, but everything around you changes. And this is where $1 Billion Mind can help a lot of people. It's all perspective. It's all how you look at things. I tell people all the time, what you may see is different than Rick may see. So that's a whole nother discussion. So it's all perspective. So, but everything changes around you. But if you're a great competitor and you have a good team around you to help you with this, you need to have a different perspective. And if you think how easily I broke it down, nothing changes unless you let it, because you're still a competitor first. You know what I'm saying? But everything outside of tennis, because you're doing that more than actual playing tennis or actual training, can affect you. You could get complacent, might not work it hard, or you look at things differently. Like now you're the chosen one, or you're being hunted instead of hunting others. All this stuff can go in your mind, but it's all how you have perspective. And that's why you need good people around you that understand the mental part and can give you advice. It's not just working harder, going to gym. No, that can actually hurt you because you're going at it physically. And let's face it, you still got to do that to get better, but it's more of a mental thing because nothing has changed on the court, but everything has changed around you. It's perspective.
I've just got a few more fan questions, which we'll get through quickly. Just a few selected from quite a few submitted in. So Puru asks, how has the approach to playing tennis evolved over your time as a coach? And I'll just add on to that, where do you see it going in the future?
Well, first off, the athlete has changed dramatically. Just like football, baseball, basketball, tennis, the athlete is very different. Everybody's quicker, faster, stronger. Sports science had a big thing to do with this, nutrition, stretching. So all this stuff has made a different athlete, because you can even look back in the 80s or 90s, it almost kind of looks like in slow motion. If you look at players today, but if those champions were playing today, I think they'd be still champions because they had the mindset. So the game has just gotten so much faster and quicker. Movement is a premium. Stroke mechanics is a premium, okay? And that's probably the biggest thing besides the athlete. Then the technology. You get more for free. You get more power, you get more spin. The technology has changed dramatically than a wood racket or a graphite or whatever back in the day. So those are the biggest changes. And people, they are just so much more athletic and explosive, and power has kind of trumped everything, especially with the men and serve and stuff like that. And I don't see any of this changing unless you use a different ball to slow the game down. They're not going to do anything with the rackets because they're selling these to a lot more people than pro players, and it's all about getting more for free, the power. But the ball might be it's come into play to slow it down a little bit. They're not going to change the dimension of the court. I doubt it. That'd be pretty radical. Okay. So I just see it getting quicker and faster. But regarding tennis in general, I think you're going to see more serve and volleying. I think people are going to come to the net more simply because a lot of these baseliners, they're standing, if we're playing in Florida, they're standing in the UK to return serve. Some of these guys are closer to the fence than they are, and it's easy to come in and like to volley. So I think you're going to see that come more into play. The chip forehand and backhand, the chip forehand, because you got to play more defense and you got to live another day. So I think that comes back into the forefront. And then I have to mention Alcaraz with the drop shot from outer space, the generational talent. He's not only changed the game, okay, for the pros, sprinkling more drop shots, he's changed the way you teach the game. Now it seems like it's been endorsed, or it's like more on the menu, the drop shot, where before, if you did it and missed it, it's like, what are you doing, you knucklehead? Why are you trying that low percentage shot? Now it's like you got to have it part of your toolbox. So I see that's where the game is going, but I do see more net play coming into the equation. But because it's so much about movement, especially on the women's side, I think power, like you're seeing from Iga and Sabalenka, that's going to carry the day and that's going to continue. But then again, the way I teach people, like I have the number one 12-year-old from Ukraine who's in Europe. She's here with me, and an 8-year-old, another one from Ukraine. I teach them different. I want them to drill it, but I want them to chip it, dip it, flip it. I want a lot of stuff going on, but power trumps the day, and I think that's going to continue for the coming years.
Combining a question from Ange and Egoed here, how did you develop your tennis knowledge and how has your coaching changed over the years? What do you do to stay ahead of the curve?
Well, first off, I haven't changed as a person. What I mean by that, I still have the passion, the drive. I'm the first one to work. I always try to get better. So my mindset has always been to get more knowledge, but that could be slippery slope because you got to get the right knowledge. So to stay ahead of the curve, I always try to learn from my students. The students kind of teach the coach. And a lot of times the coach is talking down to the student, and I talk with the student. I do it very differently. Even the eye contact, if I'm teaching someone little, I'll get on one knee. And that's how you extract greatness. But I think if you don't have, in my opinion, some knowledge of biomechanics, how all this happens, I don't think you can be the ultimate coach. Most people understand to some degree strategy. They have an idea about, strokes, but they don't understand the physics involved or the science involved of what really is the origin of hitting a ball. It's more about rotation. Power starts from the ground up. Most of the people, even on the pro tour, on the WTA side, they serve incorrectly, where the leg drive doesn't initiate the racket at the right time. You got to see this at 400 frames a second. I've looked at more video than anybody, except probably Dr. Brian Gordon. So I'm always trying to evolve, and the game, because the game's getting quicker. So I think you got to have a deep understanding of biomechanics, but you can't come across on the court like a scientist. You got to explain it depending. It's different. If I have an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old who's #1 in the world, or I'm teaching someone on the pro tour, which I work with about 25 girls. Okay. It's like everybody's different, and you can't be the same coach to every person. You can have common threads, but you got to just keep evolving, because if you're not getting ahead, you're getting behind.
Right, last one before I'll wrap things up. So Zero Dimension 98 wants to congratulate you on your Coco Gauff prediction last year, where well, a lot of people were very doubtful of her, and you predicted her to go on and win the US Open. Do you have another prediction for her, or just another player that you'd like to throw out there?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just think women's tennis is very fluid. Iga is the leader in the clubhouse. She's proven 4 Grand Slams in her back pocket. I know Sabalenka has 2 now. Iga's more dangerous on clay with those brutal angles. She's like Martina Hingis on steroids. She can whip those angles and torture people. So, and she has a little more time to hit the forehand with that grip. And regarding Coco, I know the dad well. The little brother's in our academy, great athlete, great middle school quarterback. Um, but her forehand's a little dodgy. I think it's always going to bubble up and be an issue. But her foot speed, she's the best athlete on the pro tour. She hits a bad shot. As you know, if you can move, you can get out of jail. Where if you can't move, you might get there a little late. So, and she had a lot of confidence from the summer, and things broke her way. I think the sky's the limit, okay, for Coco. And the reason why, unreal worker, great competitor. Her backhand, okay, is money in the bank. I guess it depends what bank you got it in, but I like her backbone better than her backhand. She has one of the best serves on the tour. Her slice serves trending like Serena. I like that, but forehand's a little dodgy. So that's hopefully maybe at the end of the year, I might collaborate with them, and I'd love to teach her the ATP forehand, and I think she'd be rock solid. But yeah, she's going to win multiple Grand Slams because it's kind of fluid. Sabalenka can kind of go in and out, and it's just fluid. Remember, Serena went out the door a few years ago. Ash Barty went out the door. Osaka went out the door. Bang, like 30 Grand Slams went out the window. And now you had a vacuum and just Iga. And no one's been there or done that. Now Sabalenka got another one. So it's fluid, and you're seeing that right now. So, yeah, I think she'll win multiple Grand Slams. People have to understand there's 19 reasons why she's going to win a lot of Grand Slams. And it's because she's 19 years old. Yeah, people forget that. She's been out there. She's 19. Alcaraz is 20. People can't, it's not where you start, that's where you finish. Always remember that.
Yeah, as you say, I think everyone forgets that because she's been around for so long. Like, if I think, I remember a match against Venus at Wimbledon. Like,
there you go.
That seems aeons ago, and she's still only 19. That's incredible. Just to finish things off then, something very quick. I'm sure you've been asked to do something like this before, where you build your perfect player and you pick one shot from anyone on tour, anyone retired kind of thing. Starting with the serve, from all of tennis history, whose serve are you taking to face Novak Djokovic?
Well, I'm not going to count Isner because not a lot of people are going to be 6'10", or I'm not going to take Opelka because a lot of people aren't going to be 7 foot. That's an easy one. Andy Roddick. He had the highest percentage and the highest speed. Okay. His serve was so good biomechanically, the way he uses the ground. So it would be Roddick serve. And if you want me to go down the assembly line, it would be Federer's forehand, and it'd be Djokovic's backhand. As long as I could get players with those 3 big ticket items in that neighborhood, because Djokovic biomechanically has the best backhand. There's a bunch out there, okay? The best one-handed backhand, it's not even close. It's Stan the Man from Switzerland, but I just did something with the Wall Street Journal today, and they want to know if the one-handed backhand's extinct. It might be the last of the Mohicans, but there always will be a few people there, but there's just more benefit with the speed of the game with 2 hands, okay? So that would be Federer's forehand, Djokovic's backhand, Roddick serve, the slice, I would go Federer. He could knife that thing. You know, he was a Swiss Army knife coming off that ear, you know. I mean, his ball stayed that low. So that's why I kind of mold the player like. But besides that, I like people to imitate how they respond after mistakes. Nadal, Federer, Djokovic. I don't mean to make a robot, but if you want to be great or you want to be the best you can, best way to get smarter. If you don't want to listen to me, look at greatness, how they handle mistakes. It's right there on your TV set. But the hardest thing to do is to let that emotion go. And those guys at the top, they've mastered mind control.
Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for lending me your time, despite all the issues we've had.
It's fine. I'm here.
Please,
we'll definitely do it again. And when you get it out of the oven, give it to me, and I can shoot it to 100,000 people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll leave you with that. Thank you. I'll see you again soon, hopefully.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.